Today we're going to go over the Cladogram gizmo, which is actually the last gizmo that you're going to do this year. Um, I shortened it a little. This gizmo seemed a little complicated, but I took out 3 pages from the worksheet, and I think that you should be able to work through this over 2 class sessions. So launch the gizmo, and it should look something like this. So there's a few things here. First of all, where it says organisms, it's going to show you the organisms over here. Right now we're looking at plants. And if you look down here at this drop-down menu, it says organism group, and there's actually plants, insects, artiodactyla, primates, and animals. So you're going to be using some of these during here. I did cut out some of the parts of the worksheet, so you're not going to be using all of this. But we're going to start with plants. And so there's an organism tab and a cladogram tab. And the cladogram is basically going to be the tree diagram that you build. And I'll show you how to do that. Then over here, there's the table. And this is where you're going to be keeping track of their features. And lastly, down here, next to the organism group, where it says data, there's morphological. Morphological is like anatomy, is looking at body structures. But molecular is looking at biochemistry. That's looking at like DNA, or in this case, it's going to be proteins. And if you were to click that, you see we have different kind of data, where the data they actually give us is a protein sequence, sort of like a DNA sequence where we're using letters to represent different molecules. And it's a whole sequence. So anyway, we're going to go back because at the beginning they want you to look at the plants and they want you to look at morphological. So for morphological, you can actually go to these 3 characteristics and you can click on them. And when I click on them, it actually says, like flowers, it says what the flowers are. And it also shows me if they have flowers or not. And based on reading this, I can see that only Arabidopsis has flowers and the rest of them don't. So I can actually fill that out on the table. I can say check, Arabidopsis has flowers, the rest don't, so I'm not going to click. Multicellularity tells me what it means to be multicellular. I can see that Arabidopsis, cycad, moss are all made of multiple cells, whereas algae is made of a single cell. So for multicellularity, I can fill out the table like that. And then lastly is xylem and phloem. Xylem and phloem are sort of like blood vessels for plants, and Arabidopsis and cycad has them, and moss and algae don't. So in the end, my table looks like this. And if I want to rearrange it, I can. Like if I want to rearrange it so that I have it in order of like the most traits, and I can rearrange it like so. I can also click here and check the table. If I had any mistakes, like I just made a mistake here, but if I had any mistakes, it'll highlight it in red, so I know that I made a mistake. But then here's my table. And so once I have my table, I can go to the cladogram and I can arrange them. I kind of want to arrange them the same way I did here. So algae, moss, okay, it's actually arranged in order right now. And then I can actually click on these line segments to make the lines of the tree. I could, if I click on the wrong thing, like I didn't want that there, I can click again, it'll go away. But I'll click, and what I'm going to actually do for this first one is make an arrangement so that I have like algae branching off, and then moss branching off, and then the cycad branching off, and then Arabidopsis branching off. And these orange dots represent common ancestors, and then these purple lines represent the characteristics. So I can actually click here and type in the characteristic, and the characteristic that's separated algae from the rest of them was multicellularity. I'm sort of doing this one for you. I hope you guys forgive me. The one that separated moss from the rest of them was xylem and phloem. And the one that separated the last two was flowers. And so basically, if we follow along this line, there's a common ancestor, and algae split off, but then some of them develop multicellularity, and everything after this purple line is multicellular. And then moss split off, but then after moss came xylem and phloem. So everything after this purple line has xylem and phloem. And then cycad branches off, and then there's flowers, and then everything after, there's only one, but everything after has flowers. So that's how you interpret this. The parsimony score just says how many changes there are. So there were 3 changes here. And if I want the best possible parsimony score, it's 3. So this is the best possible one. I can also show the accepted cladogram, and you can see it's the same one. So that's how you can check your work at the end. So this is how you make a morphological cladogram, and you'll get a chance to do that with different organisms, looking at their features. One other thing I want to show you real quick, I did leave in one molecular one. So if we go back to plants, you're going to be looking at the molecular one as well. And this is looking at their proteins and for differences in their sequences. So if I fill this out, let's compare cycad and algae right now, which is going to be this little part of the table. So I put algae, you can rearrange them, but they're all actually already arranged. So algae and cycad are together. If I click on algae and it covers it, selects it in orange, every time there's a difference, so like algae has for position 109, algae has K, cycad has E, that's a difference, so I can actually say that's a difference between them. L and V, that's a difference. K and V, that's a difference. A and V, that's a difference. D and N. So far there's a lot of differences there. But this is a great tool to help keep track, because it would be hard to count all this in your head. So this is a great tool to help keep track of that. Here L and L are the same, so I will not select that. But I'll keep going. S and S is the same. So it's a little time consuming, that's why I took out some of it, but I also think it's a good practice. So I want you to at least do this one. I'll do this one for you, this first part of the table, but the rest you can do on your own. And so I count 29 differences between algae and cycad. So between algae and cycad right here, I'm going to put 29. And then if I want to check the table, it did not put that in red, so that means I'm right there. So then what you would do, then look at algae and moss. So you can drag moss up, and you can reset the table if you want to get rid of that other one. But then you can select algae, and then do the same thing to figure those out. So once you have that, then you can try building the cladogram, and you should be getting the same kind of thing as you did in the morphological. But I'm not entirely sure if there's going to be some slight differences, so you're going to need to make sure you follow that correctly. So good luck with this. Play around with it. If you want to try doing some of the other ones, you're welcome to, but I took out those instructions just so you don't have to do too much. You have 2 class sessions to work on this. Good luck and have fun.